Everyone thinks because you're a zombie, you don't know good coffee. Well, they're wrong. There's only one brew that gets my seal of approval. Deadly Grounds coffee is my guilty pleasure. The aroma is so intoxicating. It brings all of my neighbors out of the woodwork. Deadly Grounds coffee. Coffee to die for and zombie approved. It's good to get a little deadly. Use the front door! Oh, they're so disgusting.
Hey everybody, it's Tuesday night. We're live. It's Wicked Horror Show. I'm Kevin, and as always, I'm joined by Tony.
What is going on, people?
And today we have a very special guest. You know him as your favorite sheep-headed murderer in You're Next, and amongst other things. He's got a new movie coming out called Time's Up. We want to welcome LC Holt. How you doing, LC?
Pleasure to be here. I'm doing good. Doing
Nice.
very well.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming on. And we, I'm a fan of a lot of the stuff that you've been in. I didn't realize you were, you behind the mask in You're Next. We were just talking about how much we enjoyed that one when it first came out. I was just like, oh, it's kind of around the same feel as like The Strangers, where it's like, okay, this could be something that could happen, which is more terrifying.
Sure.
So yeah, we really enjoyed that. Also, you're in VHS too, amongst other things. You have a career that kind of goes all the way back to like 2003 is when you started acting, at least on film. How long have you been in the biz? Like, how long have you been acting?
Yeah, even though IMDb says it's 2003, I actually go back even further than that because I did a film with Michael Mann. I did a little part in a film called The Insider. That starred Al Pacino and Russell Crowe, and this was in '98, I think.
Oh, wow.
And but I was uncredited in that movie. But I did get to be on the set and watch Pacino work and all that. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean it was great. It's definitely a highlight of the early career. And even before that, I'd been on the set of a movie called The Grass Harp when I was a kid. Which was a movie that Charlie Matthau directed with his father starring in it, his father, Walter Matthau. And great cast in that: Piper Laurie, Joe Don Baker, Walter Matthau, Jack Lemmon, Roddy McDowell. I mean, it was a huge cast.
Wow.
And amazingly, it's not a movie that you hear about very much. Eddie Furlong was in it not long after Terminator 2.
Oh, wow.
And but it's actually quite a good little movie based on a Truman Capote novel or short story. I'm not sure.
Nice.
But yeah, I've gone back a good ways in this business.
That's awesome. I mean, that's cool. I mean, it's and the thing is too, is it's like a lot of mixed stuff. Like you're not only just doing horror, you're doing other stuff as well. So that's cool. Because unfortunately, a lot of people get kind of pigeonholed in one genre. Although obviously we're horror fans, and so we enjoy a good horror movie. We enjoy everything, but and it's cool to like see people with like good ideas, like new ideas, and it's cool that you've been able to, even if it's in a small way, you've been able to kind of be involved in a lot of these really cool movies. Just real quick, Daniel John wants to say hi. Daniel's been on the show a bunch of times, and I think is he in Time's Up?
He is in Time's Up, yeah, and he's one of the producers and investors of Time's Up. Nice. So we love Dan. Yeah. I mean, you say the pigeonhole thing. That's true. I mean, much of what I've done since the early 2000s, the first film I did with Adam Wingard, was a movie called Homesick with Bill Moseley was in it, Tommy Tolles, and Tiffany Shepard. Since then, I've done a lot of horror in film, and so I have become sort of a horror guy. I don't think anyone ever thinks of themselves as a horror anything, actor. Right? I mean, you're an actor, you're a director, you're a writer, but I don't know anybody is necessarily comfortable with putting a genre ahead of their name.
Right. Right.
I would do any kind of film, but horror has a fantastic fan base. It has people who really have an opinion about things. There's very few horror fans you meet who are totally neutral on everything. You know what I mean?
Oh,
You
totally.
love things or you hate them, but if you love them, you're like so devoted to them that it's you don't hear a lot of people going, let's go to a romantic comedy convention.
I say it all the time. I literally say that all the
Exactly.
time. You don't see rom-com
Yeah.
conventions where everyone's just sitting like back to back the whole time, crossing their
But
arms.
we would keep on bringing it up. Now there's Christmas conventions,
Oh, yeah.
like
The Lifetime
Hallmark Christmas
Hallmark
stories.
Yeah. It's just such a dedicated fan base.
Yeah.
The genre is so strong in that way, and I've always loved that aspect of it.
Yeah. But the thing is that you can, you've already proven that you can do other things as well. So that's the thing is like, I guess where I say like pigeonholed, like you look at someone like Kane Hodder, who's awesome. He's a really great guy and he's funny and he's a good actor, but everyone expects a monster from him.
Yeah.
And then that's why I really like finding movies that they're actually giving him some lines and like letting him act, because I know that he enjoys those as well. So I guess that's kind of what I mean, I guess. Like, but you've already proven that you can do it. So,
and it's hard, I mean, I won't lie to say that after I did You're Next, there weren't, offers that came in for me to play, the goat guy or whatever, but you kind of have to try and steer clear of that and go toward things that are going to be different. And lately I've been playing a lot of good guys, which for the majority of my career, I played bad guys. And the last year or so, I've played a number. I just got back from a screening. I was telling someone before I came on, you guys are probably going to have a very more honest than normal interview, because I just got off a plane
from
really? a weekend retreat. Yeah. So I'm a little bit kind of jet lagged and loopy, but so, now's the time to give me the juicy questions, because I'll probably answer them. Yeah. But
I don't know if we have them. I don't know if it's like, what was the mask like? No, but that's, so you said you had, you went to a screening and it was,
in Columbus, Ohio, I went to the first public screening of a film I did last year called Terror Trips. It was originally called On Location.
Okay.
I got a distributor and they changed the title to Terror Trips. And Jeff Seaman is this guy that wrote and directed it. Great guy. And
we had him on to talk about that.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah, he's a great guy. And I got to see Jeff and all the cast who I haven't seen for a year, with some exceptions, because there were a couple people in Terror Trips that were also in Time's Up, Cheney Morrow being one in particular. But yeah, I mean, so I just got back from that. I was happy to see the audience reaction. It's the first time in many years I've gone to a screening of a movie that I was appeared in. I don't go to a lot of screenings or premieres and stuff. But
is there a reason? Like, is it just something you just don't like? Is it like you trying to separate it from, it's like, this is a job. I don't want to get,
Well, I want to support films that I was involved in. I mean, that's very important to me. I mean, as an actor, you do your work on the set and then it's over, but you can't just deny the fact that the film has a life beyond that. And if you do something with people that you like, I want to support it. But I don't find screenings and film festivals and things to be a place that I necessarily feel at home, But every so often I'll go and do go attend a screening and stuff, like I did last weekend, and it's fun. It's fun to see the people that because the way it is in filmmaking, it's like a nomadic group. You may never see these or talk to these people again. So screenings are sometimes the last time you'll get to see some of the people that you spent a month or more of your life in this intimate relationship with, where you're all living together and doing this crazy job that's so weird from normal jobs. It's just like, but so it's an intense experience, and then it's over. So,
but it seems like it's.
Sorry, go ahead, Tony.
I was going to say, it seems like, especially since we have a lot of like indie actors, actresses and stuff, it seems like, though, in the indie horror genre, it seems like that becomes like almost a family, because you'll hear, okay, the next movie we're doing, we got almost the exact same cast, and then if someone branches out to something else, like a different director or whatever have you, then they'll be like, oh, well, you should bring so and so. Like we've had even people in Time's Up we were just talking about before, like Hannah Fearman and Damien Maffei. I mean, they've been in like it seems like 3 movies together or like around that, so it becomes almost like a tight knit family situation kind of deal. So
yeah, because I had done we did On Location in October of last year, and then we shot Time's Up in January of this year. And Hannah was in I keep saying On Location. The title is Terror Trips.
I know it is On Location too. I have to, because that's what I'm looking forward to. So
it's always hard, the first film I did, Homesick, the original title was Solace, and I thought, man, that's such a great title. And then for whatever reason, they changed the title when it was distributed to Homesick, and it took me years to go, oh, it's not Solace anymore, it's Homesick.
Yeah.
But Terror Trips, yeah, me and Hannah worked together on that. Cheney Morrow was in that. And then we just sort of came over into this other film, Time's Up, which I wrote and directed and acted in, like 3 months later. So yeah, there is definitely a family vibe. I mean, there are several people I've worked with multiple times. Obviously, Wingard is someone I did 4 films with. We started out together with him directing and me acting. But Hannah is someone I've worked with multiple times. Cheney Morrow, I've worked with multiple times. Felissa Rose, who is a producer on Time's Up and is a very good.
The thing is, it seems like a new, like almost like a Rat Pack, where it's like, which isn't a bad thing because they're all people that I'm a fan of and they're solid, they're solid actors. And like, even though I've seen them in a billion things, it's like, it's still believable to me. Like they sell it. Like, it's not just like, oh, it's Damon Maffei pretending to be this peeping Tom. Like, it's like, he sells it. He's good at it. So
yeah, I mean, if you think about like the old days or even modern people like Wes Anderson, his films are populated by like an ensemble of actors that continue to come back to work with him.
Yeah,
and there is something really attractive about that because you want to work. I mean, you just when you're already friends with people, it's just easier. You don't have to break the ice. You don't have to start from scratch. You're already kind of on a level, so you can get past any sort of hesitation you might have about directing them or working alongside them because you just know them. So it's always fun to work with your friends.
Yeah,
if you can.
Right. Especially if they're as cool as that group of friends. But what were you saying, Tony?
Now I was going to say it comes off. Like we've had many a times where we'll watch a movie and I guess if you connect on screen, if we've asked, we're like, oh, how many movies have you worked together? And people have been like, oh, this is our first, movie together. And then from there, but then there's other times where it's like, you can tell that, okay, you came on the set.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then other times it's like, they just don't fit on the screen together. And it just seems like they might not want to be there at the point. It's like, you can tell when you're watching a movie how different it is. So
yeah, and it's hard too because in films, you don't get rehearsals like you would get in a play. So it's not like you have a lot of time to build up chemistry with people. So if you can put yourself in a position where you can hit the ground running and that's already in there, you save yourself a lot of trouble. Because most of the rehearsal in films happens like 2 minutes before you start rolling,
Really?
So yeah, it's like, I mean, unless you're doing like an old school Sidney Lumet film or something, you don't have like 2 months to sit and rehearse. You pretty much meet the people and then you're on screen with them.
Wow.
And that can be challenging, especially if you're supposed to have like a connection.
Yeah. So going back to, I know like you've done a lot since You're Next, but was that the first, like, because that was kind of like a bigger hit, I would say, like that was more like on radar. Was that the first movie that you would say was more of a, like, as far as like with the amount of the role that you had, even though you were wearing a mask most of the time, you're in it a lot. So is that like the first like big kind of bump for you think?
It was, I mean, the thing about my career up until then is I did a number of movies where you go, well, this is going to be the one, and then the movie comes and goes, everyone works hard on it. And the way the film industry works, you never know what's going to hit and what's not. I mean, people who say that they do, you're kind of deceiving yourself to some extent, unless it's like a Marvel movie, or something like that, but that has a built-in fan base.
Mm-hmm.
But you never know what's going to hit.
Yeah.
And then it just so happened that You're Next hit. And it's a movie that, I shot that movie 10 years ago, and I still am talking about it, and people still talk to me about it. So that's very rare. That's not something that happens all the time. So, when you have that, you just sort of appreciate it, and or at least I try to appreciate it. And, I really love that it's stood the test of time in a lot of ways for people.
Yeah.
And I've had a couple since then. VHS is a very popular series. And, being involved with the second one of those was fun because I got to be directed by my buddy Simon Barrett, who wrote and produced You're Next.
Mm-hmm.
And he has since written and directed a movie called Seance, which is really good.
Nice.
On Shudder. It just recently came out.
Oh, okay. I'm going to have to, that's in my queue. It just recently came out. Okay.
Yeah. Just in a matter of months. Yeah. So I was happy to be like the star, one of the stars of the first thing he directed, which was that segment in VHS 2.
Nice.
So, yeah.
That's awesome. So one thing I never realized, because I've never realized he acted. I guess I just was ignoring that part of his IMDb. But Ty West, I did not realize he was in You're Next.
Mm-hmm.
And when people talk about slow burns, I pretty much every movie I reference is a Ty West movie because they're just quality. Like House of the Devil blew. Like when I saw that, I legit thought, I'm like, how did I miss this movie? Like this, it felt like a movie from the 80s or like late 70s. And I was like, I was like, how did I miss this? How did I never hear that? I'm like, wait a minute. No, he's not that old. So and he's just extremely talented. And I was looking at his IMDb a little earlier today, and I see he's doing a lot of episodic stuff now. But yeah, I was shocked, and he was good in the movie too, even though he was like one of the first guys to go. But he was still like really good in the movie. So I don't know. I guess I'm just pigeonholed myself when I'm looking at people like Ty West.
Yeah, I mean Ty, I got to shoot him in the head in that movie with the arrow. But Ty is not definitely not someone who would consider himself an actor, but he did appear in the movie because him and Wingard are good friends. And so it was fun to see him act, because he's definitely a writer director. He doesn't, do the acting very much. So it was very fun that he would come out and do that. And there were several directors, actually. Calvin Lee Reeder is a really good director, and he's the police officer at the very end who gets the axe in the head. And of course, Joe Swanberg played one of the brothers. So Your Next is interesting because it has like this array of horror directors that just sort of pop up in acting roles, including Simon, who played my brother in that movie. And a lot of people don't. It takes them a couple viewings before they get, oh, that's Simon. That's the writer of the movie, because he died. He's the first killer to go,
Yep.
in that one.
And at first I was like, wait a minute, because I was like, I thought that LC's character, because the mask confused me.
Yeah.
So I was like, wait a minute, no, that's not the case. It can't be him. Because I had seen it a few times, and then I haven't seen it for years. So I wanted to watch it again. I watched it again the other night, and I was just like, okay, yeah, this it holds up, first off, which is, you said something about like how people still bring it up. Like people still bring up Sleepaway Camp to Felissa, and that was, but that's the thing is like these people, if they're like me, if they're a fan, they're going to check out everything else you got. You know what I mean? Just because you're a fan. There's another movie that we mentioned a little bit before we went live, Butcher's Bluff, that Bill Oberst Jr. is in, and I'm a big Bill Oberst Jr. fan as well. That dude can act his balls off. He's really good. So what was that? What's the situation behind that? You were wearing a shirt for like a haunted attraction. Was some there?
Yeah, Sleepy Hollow. That was I did a convention down in Texas in Austin. And right outside of Austin, there's a little town called Bastrop. And Bastrop is where the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre was shot.
Nice.
And parts of part 2, like the bridge at the beginning where they're driving across the bridge and the guy gets his head chainsawed off in part 2. All that is there. And Tobe Hooper lived there. So the right down the street from this haunted house attraction is the actual gas station from the original Texas Chainsaw, and a guy has bought the gas station and totally remodeled it. I mean, it looks exactly the same as in the movie, but he brought it back to that state. And he runs a convention down there called the Cult Classic Convention, horror convention.
Mm-hmm.
And they do great barbecue there, which is kind of ironic at that gas station, you know. But I don't think it's people. I'm pretty sure it's, you can
pretend.
Yeah, you can never tell. But yeah, so I did that convention, and then I don't know, it was maybe a year later, I flew out to do Butcher's Bluff, and we ended up shooting part of that back at this place where I had visited during that convention. A guy named William Instone wrote and directed that movie, Butcher's Bluff, and it has a number of people in it. Myself, as you said, Bill is in it. There's Bill Johnson from Texas 2. There is Jeremy London is in it.
Nice.
So it's a fun little movie. It's a slasher film, kind of a throwback slasher, and I think people will enjoy it. I actually have a poster of it, but I can't reach it from where I'm sitting here.
Okay.
But yeah, it's coming along well. I think they're pretty much wrapped up on it. And I shot that last August. 2020 was very difficult for a lot of people, but I actually shot quite a lot of movies in 2020,
Nice.
Which was challenging because you did have to deal with all the COVID stuff, which made filmmaking totally different than it had been before. Like everything about it was different. But it was definitely a fun experience of working on a number of films that year, from Butcher's Bluff in August to Terror Trips in October to Time's Up in January, and I've since done a movie called Go Away.
That's with the director from Bloody Summer Camp, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And we've had him on too.
Yeah, Felissa is also in that. Tom Matthews, Tuesday Night. Bob or Robert Mukes.
Oh, he's the man, by the way. Robert Mukes he's a giant man, but he's like the nicest guy.
Yeah.
Like whenever I see him at a convention, he's always like, "Oh, hey!" Like he's just happy to see me, and I'm just like, "You're terrifying." Like he's not terrifying, but he easily could be. He's one of those guys that I really want to see. I want to see things break for him.
Yeah,
I really want to see it because he's such a good guy.
As I've somehow managed to accumulate a career in which I've worked with most of the cast of House of a Thousand Corpses at this point. Yeah.
Which ones haven't you? Jerry
well, I never worked with Karen Black. She passed away before I could work with her. But I've never worked with Sherry.
Well, if you haven't been in a Rob Zombie movie, then because that's all she does, right?
Kind of narrows it down. Yeah.
But so we mentioned Time's Up. We've been talking for almost a half hour and we haven't really gotten into it, and that's our fault. So what can you tell us about Time's Up? You wrote this and you're directing it. You're in it.
Yeah, I did. I wore a lot of hats in Time's Up. The movie is a slasher film set on New Year's Eve. It's about a group of teachers who get together for a New Year's Eve party and wind up being forced into participating in a scavenger hunt, which has been organized by this killer, Father Time. Wears this disguise of Father Time. And it all seems to hinge around the suicide of a student earlier in the year, whether it be something about the revenge, or you have to watch you got to watch the movie for that because it's a whodunit.
Oh, nice.
So it's in that sort of vein of, I guess, things like Prom Night or Scream. Or, where it's not like a Jason Voorhees killer. I guess you could equate it to the original Friday, in which you didn't know who the killer was.
Right.
But it's very much about trying to figure out who is the person behind the Father Time mask and why are they doing this. And really that element of the story is what attracted me to it most, the mystery element of it, not so much to do like a slasher character, like a Michael Myers type character, but to do something where you're always trying to figure out what the motive is and who's doing it. I've always liked those kinds of slashers.
Yeah, it's something that's it makes you think. Like it especially now where people easily are distracted by things. Cell phones in their pockets, what have you. It's something different will hold people's attention, and I always respect that.
Yeah.
So that's and I love those kind of stories as well, because it's like you want to try to figure it out before the end, and then you're hoping that you don't get it right by the end.
Right.
You're
Yeah.
hoping, oh, God, yeah, that spelled it out completely. Oh well, whatever.
Yeah.
But, so where are you at with Time's Up? I know you said you did filming in January. Are you completely wrapped on filming? It's just in like post production now?
Yeah. We filmed it in January. We've been in post production ever since. We have a second cut of the movie that's done, and now we're going through and fine tuning the edit. And then after that, it'll go off to Alexander Taylor, who is our great composer, and he will, do the score for the film. Alex's work he's worked on that film Nebraska. He worked on I don't know if you saw the Mark Patton documentary Scream Queen, but he did the music for that.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, he's a great composer. So I'm really interested to see what he's going to bring to it, because music creates a whole other level to a movie. It's
Totally does.
I mean, it's sort of like the old John Carpenter story, where he showed it to the person without the music, and they're like, "This isn't scary," and then he put the music in there, and it's the same movie, but just with the music, and they're like, "Oh my God,"
Well, I guess it kind of depends on the movie too, because I think music would have ruined Texas Chainsaw, the original.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, everything is case specific.
Yeah.
It depends on what you're doing. I mean, even down to scenes. It depends on what works in this scene wouldn't work in the scene later in the movie.
Right.
It's all very case specific.
Yeah.
Because you look at a movie like Jaws, and which is more iconic. I mean, the shark's more iconic, but that right before it, it's like, okay, he's coming because of the music. It's like, you need that to come in. Well, technically, maybe not, but it's in there, so that's what it's
effective. Yeah, it adds to it. Like I play bass, and I learned on an upright, and that was like one of the first things I decided to try to play was the Jaws. It's only 2 notes, so it's like it's easy enough. As a little kid, just being like, "Hey, listen to this," playing the Jaws thing.
Well, it's one of those things. It's also one of those things. Like, could you imagine Psycho without the Bernard Herrmann score?
It's true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, that score is it's almost like a character in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And
I agree. It'll take away if it's the wrong choice completely, or if it's like mixed bad too. Like we've seen that like in some of the lower budget stuff where like the music's way too loud. It's like you can't even hear what the characters are saying. Whatever. So what are the plans? Like, do you have like an estimated date on when Time's Up you're looking for release?
It's going to be next year, hopefully on the earlier side of next year. I mean, it would have been great to have it out by New Year's of this year, but things, come about and happen that you can't necessarily foresee. And the more important thing, I think, for myself and everyone working on it is to make sure that the movie is, you don't want to put something out that's not complete. And I think there's too much sometimes a rush to try and just get it out there. Sometimes, with this stuff, you have to take your time and work with it. And,
make it right.
Yeah.
Like, don't just push it out there. Yeah, I agree. Because it's your name on it. Like you're directing it, so it's like, I mean, you've directed other things, but you want to progress. So it's you want your name on quality.
But then, of course, the fan in me is like, oh, but I want to see it. Like how many times have we mentioned? Like I might personally have never gone to like a screening or anything, but like a film festival, and Kevin has, and he's like, oh, there's some movies that you want to see come out that never see the light of day, and there's other one. It's like, okay, it's in this film festivals for like 2 years, and it's just like, I want to see it, especially being like I'm a physical movie collector. So at that point in time, I want to hold it, I want to see it, and then, of course, I want something great. But then, like I said, the movie fan in me, it's like, okay, I want to see it now, though. So
yeah,
catch-22, I guess.
It's tough. There's no one that wants people to see Time's Up more than me. That's for sure. But when it's out there, it'll be the product that was intended. So that's the key, is making sure what you put out is what you intended when you made it.
And I think now with everything that's going on, I think film fests are not as regular as they were. So maybe they won't be doing the runs that long anymore. But
Yeah, and sometimes you can do both. You know, you can screen films at festivals and already have a distribution deal, which was the case with Terra Trips, which is it has a distribution deal. But I'm
Mm.
sure it'll be screened at some more festivals right up until and maybe even beyond when it's released.
Mm.
You know, so you can kind of do them simultaneously now too.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, with everything, I mean, a lot of stuff, unfortunately, going towards the streaming route.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes it's a good thing and a bad thing at the same time. But I don't know. It's kind of like a, I don't know. It's good. It's got its good and its bad because I'm a collector as well, so I like to have physical copies of stuff. And I know that there's, I mean, the good part about things like Tubi and you know, services like that is small filmmakers can get their stuff out there and actually start making money. But at the same time, too, they have no need to make a physical copy anymore because that's expensive, even though
right.
the collector wants to buy it. But at the same time, too, you want to be able to, you know, have it so that they can continue to do their craft. So,
And
I don't
there
know.
is I mean, there's an old school quality to me where I like physical stuff.
Yeah.
And not only do I like physical stuff, but I like to sit in the movie theater and watch people's reaction to the
Mm.
movie. You know, it's like the worst thing you could do is spend, like in the case of Time's Up, 2 years of your life working on something that ultimately will only be seen on someone's TV at home. I
Mm.
mean, you want there to be at least a chance for there to be an experience in which people could sit together in a room and watch it projected big, because that's different. That's so different
Yeah, I
than
agree.
anything you could get, you know, streaming. And I don't think there'll ever be a substitute for that. And you know, but the way things have become, you know, that's become sort of the milieu for big movies, movies that they know they can make a lot of money, you know, putting out on the big screen. And
Yeah.
you might have smaller movies that have a limited run, you know, in a few cities and stuff,
Yeah.
which that's better than nothing. But I would love to see it where, you know, movies that get big screen treatment aren't just the big budget action films, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. We have some smaller theaters in my area, and they tend to like go more towards like the more limited release stuff, which is
Mm,
awesome.
yeah.
But they're struggling, you know, like there's actually been a few movie theaters in my area that have shut down. Like big chains too that have just shut down because they're not making any money because no one's going. Um,
Yeah,
but
and I mean, I totally understand the business model of it. You know, obviously, Spider-Man's going to get you more butts in the seats, you know, at your movie theater than something like I don't know, you know, name your independent horror film.
yeah.
But you know, still, you know, but there are always these things that break out. I mean, look at something like Hereditary. Like, I'm sure people
Yeah.
didn't think that was going to be this huge box office hit, you know,
Mm.
or even something like The Purge, or you know, Paranormal Activity is a great example. Like, who
Yeah.
would have thought, you
Yeah.
know?
Even
But
going back to like Blair Witch and stuff too,
yeah,
like
I
that,
mean,
you know, I've talked
that
about that
was
numerous times where it was so effective, and what made it so effective was watching that in a theater, a full packed sold out theater, and everyone was completely silent during the whole movie,
yeah.
you know, and that's a rarity. But
And that's one of those things where you had that experience in the theater. Like, people wanted
right.
to go there because you would, you know, because it was so handheld and it was kind of the first found footage movie. You had all these people going like, well, if you sit too close to the screen, you're going to get motion sickness and you're going to throw up. So people were going and sitting close to the screen just to prove they weren't going to throw up. You know, it
Right.
was like going on a roller coaster, you know, where
Yeah.
it was a real experience. The only thing I can think of in the past that would equate to that would be like The Exorcist when it was in theaters. You know, people were going to it as like a stamina test. Like, can you make it all the way through the movie when all your friends have run out and thrown up in the hallway, you know? And that makes a whole other experience of filmmaking. But that's pretty rare if you get a movie that's that visceral, that becomes that big of a thing.
With Blair Witch, the other thing that it had, I think, on its side was marketing, but it was like pre-internet, because if that came out now, you know, then that would blow it up and be like, oh, it's fake and all this stuff, and don't worry, don't see it and all this stuff. But that was like the infancy of the internet, so it was like, is this real? Until the people actually went on like the late night talk shows.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah,
Like,
you
like
had
I've
no
said
idea
before.
did this really happen or anything like that. But then they came on. It's like, okay, the veil got, you know, they opened it up. But it was like before that. It's like the marketing that they had. It's like, did these people really disappear? Or did this really happen? Because that was like the infancy of like found footage. So it's like, okay, well,
there was definitely found footage before that, but it wasn't to that extent where it was that popular. But yeah, the way that I found out that wasn't real was that the three of them, or three of the cast, whatever, were in the audience at Jay Leno, and he panned over and showed them, and I was like, huh, wait a minute, I thought they were dead. But yeah, that was back in the day when everyone was a little bit dumber because they didn't have the internet.
That's right.
Yeah. So
I think it was actually smart. I think it's the opposite way around, a little bit smarter,
probably.
because nowadays everybody's got an opinion,
Right.
even if it's right or wrong. You know, you were talking about, you know, how the horror fans are very loyal and everything, which is a blessing and a curse, because sometimes it's like these movies that you know, everyday people might like, these horror fans, or quote unquote, are a little bit too cynical. And it's like, come on now, like, you don't take it too serious.
But at the same time, though, they're very cynical. But if they're at a convention where that person's at, they're probably going to go say hi to them. Like, that's the thing. Like, there's people that, like, there's movies that I'm not a fan of.
Yeah.
You know, but at the same time, too, I'm like, hey, I respect that they put the work into that. Like, I'm not a fan of the Halloween franchise. I've said it a billion times. I'm just not. But I respect what it is, and I respect that people like it. I mean, I don't know, some people are just crazy. But speaking of old horror movies and stuff, Sergio always asks, do you have a favorite horror movie? Sergio in our chat room. So I know that you know, when did you get into horror? Because I know you've done other stuff like earlier on, like way early in your childhood. When did you get into horror, and like, do you have one that really affected you?
I've always, I can't remember a time when I didn't like horror movies.
Nice.
When I was very young, I always loved horror. I never thought I would be an actor in horror films. It never occurred to me. When it's just ironic that it happened that way. And I'm very pleased by it. You know, the 12-year-old me would be very proud of the 40-year-old me. But I mean, it's hard for me to say a favorite, because anytime I name one, I can think of two or three others. There are a lot of movies I grew up with, like Black Christmas, which I love. There's a movie called Burnt Offerings, which I don't think gets quite enough respect, which was a Dan Curtis movie with Oliver Reed and a number of Burgess Meredith was in it, Betty Davis, based on a book. The Exorcist, the original, I love. I think it's one of those movies that just transcends the genre, you know. It's almost too good for its own good, you know. And it's ironic because it's like one of the great movies of horror made one of the worst horror sequels with Exorcist 2, you know. It's like,
The Heretic.
Yeah, how did that happen? But then they kind of recovered with Exorcist 3, you know.
Yeah.
And ever since then, it's just forget about it. But yeah, I mean, those are some of the ones I can think of.
Yeah.
And growing up, you know, I loved the Friday the 13th movies. I loved Nightmare on Elm Street. You know, the classics, Hellraiser, the first three of those I watched religiously, especially the first two. But yeah, I mean, those are some of the ones that come to mind.
Yeah. Yeah, was so for me, like I always say, like the one that affected me the most was probably Poltergeist. When that first came, like it first hit cable, it like affected me for real. Like it still affects me. Like the scenes in that movie, I'm just like, oh, I can't even look at it, you know. But I mean, that's a good thing, you know. I can't. I mean, there's some comedies that I like, and there's some dramas that I love, and it's like, you know, it's like, it's great, but at the same time too, if I want to like actually feel something, it's far and few between. Like the movies actually like will move me a little bit, you know. And more horror movies do that for me because it makes you scared, and that's cool. I don't know.
I'm not a big comedy guy. I don't know if it's my personality or what, but when I find a comedy that I like, I really like it. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where it's like, most things don't make me laugh, but sometimes I'll find something like Dodgeball, you know, and I'll just fucking laugh the whole time.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, okay, I get this. And a lot of people think I'm this really serious guy, but like I watch something like The Naked Gun, that's hilarious to me.
Yes,
Like
I agree
those,
100%.
if it's a really good spoof, like if it's well made, and that really kind of slapsticky kind of humor gets me every time. Like I love that.
That kind of humor I think is lost nowadays. Like I grew up with like Mel Brooks and even like Monty Python, like some of those like, was that a joke? And then after a while it's like, okay, then you laugh like a couple seconds after kind of deal. But like you were talking about like the newer, maybe like mid 2000s is when it kind of, now it's all like dirty humor and all that stuff where it's like they rehash the same jokes over and over. It's like, I heard that already. You know, there's some that I'll laugh at now, but the comedies of now aren't.
It's like that for everything, though. Like if Hollywood made money on it, they're gonna reuse it. Like that's just the way it's gonna work. Unfortunately, like it's like that with horror. It's like that with a lot of dramas. Like I can't tell you how many times I've walked through the room where my wife is watching a Hallmark movie, and it's just like, didn't you already watch this one? She's like, no, it's brand new. I'm like, it's the same exact story as the one you watched last week.
Yeah.
Like, how is it any different? They're even in the same place. I don't even understand.
Yeah.
So Sergio is asking if we have a trailer. We don't have a trailer yet.
It's coming. It's coming.
Any ideas on when that may be happening?
It won't be very long. It'll be by the end of the year, I think is safe to say, for sure.
Cool. So yeah, be on the lookout for that. And when it pops up, Sergio, we'll play it on one of the shows because I want to see it too. But yeah, so I don't know. Comedies, it's weird. Like for me, it's like most of the ones I really, really like are really, really stupid. Like, I don't like some movies that are considered like smart comedies. I enjoy, but I don't really look at them as like comedies.
Yeah. Well, you know, like I always grew up watching the John Hughes movies because I'm kind of a child of the '80s. You know, like Planes, Trains, and Automobiles is
I love that.
Hilarious.
I love that. John Candy is easily. I mean, I also gravitated because I was always a bigger kid. So him and Chris Farley were like my idols growing up because they took, you know, fat guy humor and they put it to the mainstream humor. So anything John Candy was, you know.
But also being a big kid my whole life, I also didn't respect. I mean, I didn't enjoy that they would just everyone else would just use those jokes against me. You know, when you're putting on a coat and they're doing the fat guy in a little coat thing, that's you know, it hurts eventually. You know, it happens too much. But yeah, I don't know. It's weird. I mean, there's a lot of really great comedies out there that I just don't get. Like they're great comedies, but I don't know. I just don't think they're great. I'll watch Billy Madison any day. It's stupid and it's funny.
I'll tell you a test that I always give people, and you guys can tell me what you think of it. I call it the Burbs test.
Okay.
If you like the movie The Burbs, then we'll be friends forever. It's because I love The Burbs. Have you seen that?
I've seen The Burbs. Yeah, it's been a very long time since I've seen The Burbs.
But. It's one of those great. I mean, that's probably the closest I think they've ever come to doing a really good horror comedy because it has that horror element, but it's hilariously funny. You know, with Tom Hanks and Bruce Dern and Corey Feldman. Oh, Corey Feldman! But he's good in that movie. You know. Yeah. And Joe Dante directed it, Gremlins, you know, and I love The Burbs. That's another one.
That's one that like it's. I see it pop up enough, like where people are referencing it or whatever, and it makes me realize that it's been a very long time since I've seen it, to the point where I'm sure I have things mixed up in my mind. So it's one that I need to watch again soon.
Definitely.
This will make me do it. So I'll watch it and I'll message you and let you know if we're going to be friends forever.
It's actually, I think Shout Select put it out. It's in that. It's nice. Back there somewhere. So, but it's definitely like growing up. The first recollection of a movie I remember was Killer Clowns from Outer Space, just because how ridiculous it is. And it's one that, you know, I guess the crazier the movie, the more I'll remember it. Like that's ingrained in my head forever, just because trying to tell people, you know, oh yeah, these aliens came down and they're clowns and you got to pop their nose, and people would look at me and be like, the hell are you talking about? I'm like, yeah, it's a movie. It's actually, so those kind of ones are the ones that, you know, are in great. There's so many movies that are like carbon copies that I'm like, I kind of get mixed up with each other, and it's like, was that this movie or that? So movies like Killer Clowns, or nowadays Rubber, the movie Rubber about the killer tire, such a crazy idea, but one you're not going to forget. So
yeah, it works. Yeah, that stuff sticks out. Like things like the Greasy Strangler. Like I'm never going to forget that movie. I don't know did you ever see the Greasy Strangler?
I did not. No.
Oh, I highly recommend that. You may want to skip it. I love the movie. It's very weird. It's very, very bizarre. Like I don't know if have you ever heard of a show called Tim and Eric? Awesome show, great job.
Yes, I've heard of it. Yeah.
It's that style of humor, but in a like weird kind of horror-ish movie.
I see.
Very strange.
It reminded me of like Napoleon Dynamite, like the
weirder.
craziness of that weird like movie, but in a
weird.
horror as like just like quotable lines, but so odd and off. But it's definitely one that once you see it, you're like, I'm never forgetting this movie ever.
Yeah.
Well, I can throw out another recommendation you just reminded me of. A movie I saw this last weekend when I was hanging out with Cheney Morrow. Before we went to the screening, is a movie called Vicious Fun.
Vicious Fun.
It's on Shudder.
Okay.
I think it might be a Shudder original. Definitely check that out. It's really weird, over the top, kind of strange. It's a horror comedy with a lot of vaporwave 80s music because it's set in the 80s and it has a lot of like 80s references and stuff. But it's actually a really, really fun horror comedy with some performances in it that are, silly as hell. But really, really kind of fun to watch. I would recommend checking out, Vicious Fun.
Yeah, I'm all like I watch Shudder more than I watch Netflix, so that'll definitely be added to my queue. I'm always looking for things too. Like I don't know, Shudder is fantastic. I waited way too long to get it, and now that I have it, I'm just like, all right, I just have to watch everything now.
Yeah, it's great.
And a lot of the series that are on there, and like the foreign horror, like it's opening my eyes to so much, like just great foreign horror. Yeah. So much better horror, like bigger budget foreign horror that's out there. Like then eventually they'll remake it in the US and it won't be as good. But,
it's like just the Japanese horror, which is so fantastic when it's made in Japan, but is rarely translates. I mean,
like Grudge and even like The Ring and stuff like that, where they weren't bad, but if you watch the originals from Japan, it's like, holy crap, this is so much scarier,
Well, I mean, one of my favorite Japanese horror movies was a movie called Keiro, which was made in America as Pulse. And Pulse is not very good, but Keiro is one of my favorite. I mean, it's so, talk about get under your skin.
Really?
I mean, it's probably about 3 hours long. You have to take some time to watch it.
I'm okay with that.
It's slow, but the overall effect of the slowness and the atmosphere really adds up to something that's really disturbing.
I think they made like 3 of them in America.
Yeah.
The spin-off. I mean, being a collector, I think I collected all the movies, and they just got progressively worse as they went. But going back to Time's Up, man, you say you wearing all different hats. Like, was your, starting from acting, was your trajectory going towards directing as well? Because some people say, they act for a while and then they want to start directing, or did it just, come up out of nowhere? Like, did you always want to take that next step and write and direct, or how'd that go?
I started out wanting to be a writer, and then a writer who directs. And in college, I started making these movies. Every semester, I would make a new short film. And what I learned in doing that is the one thing you can rely on is that you can't rely on people to show up. So I started to write the movies so that I could act in them, because I was always going to be there one way or another. And then once that happened, the acting took off. I started doing plays, and then I got cast in all these other movies, and then I became this actor in films that like You're Next. And so actually me writing and directing this movie is more like coming back around to where I originally started. Though I love acting, and acting is something I will continue to do. And in a lot of ways, after you've directed a movie, you want to act more than anything, because it's like, finally, I'm not the one in charge. I get to go do my scenes and go home. It's great. So it makes you love acting even more. But I do really love the writing and the directing. within the, if you have a good circumstance in which to do it, because a lot of that side, the production side, the filmmaking side, is about politics, and it's about, the other people you have to work with, and do they respect you? Do they get what you're doing? Do they want to work with you? I mean, there's a lot more involved than just being an actor.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to figure that, you have to figure your way through that maze of, landmines. But in the end, I think ultimately it is worth it. It's just a lot of work. And when you direct something, you want to ask yourself, is this something I want to spend the next 2 years of my life on?
Yeah.
Because that's what it becomes,
And I think people have to realize, I mean, we've just, from doing the show, we've talked to directors that, you can sometimes, I mean, not sometimes, you can tell like these guys are like pushing movies out, like, I don't know how many a year. And it's, the quality's obvious that they're doing that.
Yeah.
But then you have other people that spend 2, 3, even up to 5 years on a movie. And it's like, I would consider some of these like masterpiece, and that's one thing that people have to realize. Like I've done a little things here and there where just like a day on a set kind of deal, and that's it. It's like, oh, when's this going to come out? Like, and not for like another year. It's like, oh, okay. So it's kind of like a hurry up and wait kind of thing. Like people are expecting like it's going to happen right now. It's not. I don't know if I have the patience to do that. I still work a 9 to 5, so it's like, hey, you took this time off to go do this. Where's the proof that you did this? Like, wait a year, I guess. We'll see if it's going. But I don't know. When you're doing it as a living, I guess it's more feasible. But as a fan and as someone who just maybe dabbles a little bit here and there, it's like, I don't know. It's you guys have patience, and it's good though, because it's you're like you said before, you're taking your time and you're putting out a product that you're going to be proud of that has your name on it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the plus there.
But then coming around full circle too, like you were saying, trying to find the right people in politics and what, like that family ties again comes back. If you work on a set with, people you enjoy, I think, maybe doing Time's Up, the next movie you want to write and direct, you might have, okay, let me write this scene for Hannah, or this scene for Damien, or this scene for or character, should I say, for Felissa or something, to make it, a little bit easier on you. So with especially like I said, with the indie films, we had people from Canada that said, the group got smaller and smaller, or like closer and closer, and that became like Kevin was talking about, the Rat Pack or whatever, where now each one's directing each other and each one's in their own movies and stuff, which also at that point in time I enjoy myself, because especially Kevin was saying, once you see someone you enjoy, especially us two, will follow their career when we'll get whatever they're in. So
yeah.
And I like to see progression. Like that's the thing, is I want to find, like, if you made something that I really like, I want to see your first stuff. Because I want to see like, oh wow, they learned from this and this and this. Like, I don't know why I like that so much, but I do.
Well, a lot of directors that I admire, like Cronenberg is a great example. You can see the arc of his career, like the movies he makes now are so different than the movies he made when he started, but you can still tell it's Cronenberg. He's still there. It's just the movies change and he tries different things. I'm always, fascinated by that kind of trajectory of someone who changes as they get older, too. I think sometimes Peter Jackson's another great example. Yeah.
Meet the Feebles and freaking Dead Alive to Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
And who would have thought, if you watch Dead Alive, who would have thought that'd be the guy who would be making The Hobbit? It's like, it's amazing. But I mean, sometimes I think you have directors who kind of get stuck and they get stale, in their own thing. Like they're not able to break out of it.
Yeah.
Not to name anybody, but we could probably, you guys know.
We can probably name a few.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that they don't make things that people enjoy, but it's just like, all right, you're going to be doing that for the rest of your career, because that's all you're doing. Yeah.
Yeah. And then eventually the movies kind of have that feeling of being kind of stale and tired, and it's like, but I mean, there are certainly people that it was like Tony was saying, that I will work with going on. Cheney, I would love to work with in anything I direct. Hannah, I'd love to work with again. Felissa. Yeah. So the next thing I do, which is rattling around in the back of my head already,
Yeah.
is
I was gonna ask if you had something in the works, but you have some ideas.
I have some things that I have something that I'm working on. Yeah, but you just never know. You never know. Because my key concern is finishing Times Up, and that takes up so much of your time.
Mm-hmm.
But once that's over with and it's out there for people to see, I can really get serious about other things.
Yeah.
But and of course acting. I'll continue to act in other people's stuff.
Yeah.
I have a number of those coming out, which you guys have already mentioned, and that haven't come out yet, but that will be coming out next year.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a lot of stuff on the
awesome.
horizon.
Just out of curiosity, what was like? Did you work a lot with Bill Oberst in that one film?
Oh, and Butcher's Bluff.
Yeah.
No, a lot of my scenes were not with Bill.
Oh.
I had a number of scenes with Sean Phillips in that movie.
Okay. Cool duder.
But we did have cool dude.
Yeah.
But we did have Bill and I are in one sequence together, and then it kind of breaks away, and I go my way, and he goes his in terms of the characters, and so. But I would Bill is another person I'd love to direct in a movie.
Yeah, I want to see him. He's in a lot of movies that are not great movies, and he's always the best thing in that movie. Like,
well, what always interested me is trying to take actors who are really good and giving them something to do that's different than what everybody asks them to do. That fascinates me. Like, that has always interested me. Because I think a great actor is just looking for an opportunity to show what they can do, and I would love to do that in some of my films that I direct in the future, because that's exciting to me. I want to see what else people can do.
Yeah, as a fan, I want to see what else they can do. Like, and I support it. Like, yeah, with people like Kane and other just like legendary slashers, like people that are known for that. I want that want to act, like how many times did like Sid Haig get kind of pigeonholed as Captain Spaulding, and like he's also like, go back and watch like Spider Baby and like some earlier stuff, and he was great.
Well, like Kane, he never really talked in any of his movies, but look at like Knife Corp that came out, where he plays like a psycho father type figure, where he has some interesting lines and funny lines and stuff like that, where people might only know him as Jason or Victor Crowley or something like that, and it's like, no, the dude can act. So.
Yeah, but at the same time too, he's that name, so he's always going to have a line at his table, and he's always going to be able to make a movie, and he's always going to be awesome. So that's all. But I just want to see him continue to be awesome. So it's just about that time. So where can people go to find out more about Time's Up and anything else that you're working on?
Well, Time's Up and me as a person, we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter. Time's Up has an Instagram. Go to any of those places, look up Elsie Holt or Time's Up or one or the other. You'll find us. We're linked together, and you'll get all the updates. We do live streams occasionally on the Time's Up page and on my page, where we talk to some of the actors and some of the crew, and keep people up to date on where we are in post. And because that's a big part of it, you want to remind people where you are, and particularly people who donated to the films Indiegogo, so they know that we're in, like, for instance, right now we're in the cutting stage and we're moving toward locking the picture and then scoring it. I just kind of keep people up to date on that kind of thing.
Nice. So Tony, where can people follow you?
You can find me at Tony Has Nine Fingers on YouTube, where I do movie reviews, unboxings, anything movie related. You'll find that on my YouTube. Right now I'm finishing up the 31 Days Half October, which is, pretty much a horror movie review for the entire month of October, one a day. So doing that, so you can check me there. Tony Has Nine Fingers on Twitter, which I hardly ever use. Tony's Movies on Instagram, where I show off the movies behind me. And then, of course, you can find me here on the Wicked Horror Show. Most Tuesday nights, sometimes we take a week off, but most Tuesday nights we'll be here. And check out the Wicked Horror Show Instagram, which I'm trying to keep up with and
Yeah.
trying to grow from there.
Cool.
Kevin?
Yeah, and just I want to bring up one of our other guys who's on twice a month. The 13th Wolfman is also doing 31 days of October, which I don't understand how you guys do it. I mean, besides watching a movie, filming a review, and then putting it up every time, I don't have the time. So good on you. You can follow me, A Knuckle, on Instagram. Besides doing this and the reviews with the 13th Wolfman over on the audio side, I'm also part of Black and White Fright and Secret Underground Hideout, all of which are on the Dorkening Podcast Network. Go to thedorkening.com for more information on all the shows on the network. Thanks for listening/watching. And go check out Time's Up or look for more information on Time's Up. And we'll play the trailer when it comes out. And thanks for coming on, LC. And everyone have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye. I'm ending the stream.